You can get my games at petersengames.com. When you go on there for the first time, you can get 20% off your order by signing up for the newsletter. That's a good deal.
Ladies and gentlemen, my guest today that I'm interviewing, the great Sandy Petersen, who has worked on a litany of iconic video games, including Doom, Quake, RuneQuest, Age of Empires. For me, maybe even more exciting, and I did not know this until this week, created Call of Cthulhu, which I think is the superior pen and paper game. One I've never had the fortune of playing myself, but I watch people play routinely online. The great Sandy Petersen, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, I'm excited to be here. My son was super excited because he's a big follower of yours on YouTube, and so I have become a follower, but I wasn't really aware before the last couple of weeks. So
thank you. That's amazing. What an awesome connection. I'm so happy to have you on here. One of the things that I talk about a lot, coming at things through like sort of a right-wing perspective, a Christian perspective or a conservative perspective, is that oftentimes we see that it tends that right-wingers, either through like sort of corruption, nepotism, etc., or just lack of interest, don't get involved in things like the entertainment industry, particular things like video games and other forms of entertainment and games. Well, I think it's absolutely amazing to have someone on like you that represents that.
Well, I do. I will admit that most of the other developers I worked with were agnostic or either apolitical or tended left. Now, I got out of the video game industry about 2010. And so I think the most hardcore radical left stuff hadn't infected it then. And I don't know if it's still infected. Like I said, most of the guys literally didn't care about politics, but they certainly weren't right-wing, you know?
Yeah. So before we get into the political stuff, I would have my audience would throttle me if I don't ask you about some of the beginning of your career and how you got involved. Okay. What was your timeline? Did you work for Chaosium first and you developed Call of Cthulhu before you were working on like RuneScape?
Yeah. So or RuneQuest. But yeah.
RuneQuest. I'm sorry.
Yes. So what happened was that I've been a big gamer. I mean, I used to stay inside from recess to play Clue or Stratego, you know, and not every day. Sometimes I had to go. I wanted to go play kickball, but so I've been a gamer my whole life. And then I started sending stuff to Chaosium. They would publish it, and then in 1981 they had me write the game Call of Cthulhu, which, for those not aware, is a game like D&D, but it's set in the modern times, and it's like monsters and ghosts and aliens and stuff. So, you know, a horror, the first horror role-playing game, also the first attempt to make H.P. Lovecraft into a well-known character. And before then, he was like vanishingly obscure, and now he's pretty well known. I think it's a combination, not just me. I think Stuart Gordon's movies, Reanimator, From Beyond, did some of that. But yeah, between the two of us, and if I did it first, he did his 4 years later. We've made Cthulhu into such a household name. I now have like Cthulhu plushies and all kinds of crap, you know. So very exciting.
When did you like get a love for Lovecraft? Like, were you young when you started reading him, or?
I don't know, 8-year-old counts pretty young. I was looking through my dad's books in these boxes downstairs. So we were in a temporary house we lived in for like 3 years. So we moved into our house where he actually had a library. And there was this book from 1942, The Dunwich Horror and Other Stories by H.P. Lovecraft. And it was in an armed services edition. You know, they made all those books for the soldiers and sailors. So I don't know how it helped our soldiers fight the Japs to read a book about Lovecraft horrors, but it's so exciting that that's the kind of thing that our country did.
Hey man, yeah, whatever works. What's your favorite Lovecraftian movie since you brought him up? Like, I'll tell you mine. Mine's Mouth of Madness. I absolutely love Sam Neill in it. Yeah.
That's a really good one. I really like Dagon by Stuart Yuzna. That's a good one.
I'm aware of it. I've never seen it, but I am aware of it.
Very close to the to the story in the Shadow of Arizmith.
That's amazing, and is it more recent?
Dagon was in the 90s. You know.
Yeah. It's.
You know what a really good modern one is? That is only a few years old. It's called Atarados in Spanish, or Terrified in English, from Argentina, and it's about the other world creeping through, kind of like In the Mouth of Madness. And man, it's good. It's constantly surprises. You're never really sure what's going on, and the main characters act just like the players in a Call of Cthulhu game. So which does not save them, but
I think that now, again, I've never had the pleasure of playing Call of Cthulhu. In fact, I've played my first pen and paper here online. About 2 months ago, I started to play D&D. But I watch a lot of videos of people that play Call of Cthulhu. And what amazes me is that I think that Dungeons & Dragons has a vibe where it's just like you're basically playing a superhero, right? And it's all about the action. Call of Cthulhu, it seems
it's
like
more
you're
authoritarian. You're like worse than the average person,
right?
Also, Call of Cthulhu is interesting because you're like super. They get this registered as this creepy, perverted game, but the fact is, you're the most noble guys out there, because in D&D you kill the dragon, you get this loot, become a king. In Call of Cthulhu, your big treasure from the adventure is some moldy old book that makes you go crazy by looking at the pictures. No one can know about what you've done, because if they if they learn, it'll destroy the world. So you don't get a reward except knowing that you that you saved the world.
And it seems that like the role-playing aspect of it's like dialed up to 11, because like your character sheet sometimes less important than like what you, the person playing the character, is sort of discovering and trying to learn on your own. I think that's amazing.
Well, the thing is, Dungeons and Dragons, and I love Dungeons and Dragons and RuneQuest, but in those other role-playing games, what happens is there's a cycle. Kill the monster, get the loot, level up. Kill the monster, get the loot, level up. And there's this compelling cycle of constantly increasing. Call of Cthulhu doesn't have that, because the weakest monster in the game is an insane cultist, and he's just as tough as you are, and more ruthless and probably better organized. So combat can't be the emphasis. So instead, it's all about mystery and exploration and figuring out. So the big boss fight against the final enemy is likelier to be filling up the old well with a bunch of concrete, or running a truck of dynamite down into the old mine to close it off. You're not fighting Cthulhu, because nothing can fight Cthulhu. So it's contrarian. But the thing is, if you want to play that weird contrarian thing, it's the only game like that. If you want to play the cycle of kill, get better, literally every other game does that.
Did you have, I think you were probably long gone by the time they came out with like the rule set of like Pulp Cthulhu, which seems to try to make it more like those traditional ones. Any feelings on that?
Well, it's more like the traditional one. So of me, it's not as interesting, because like I said, if I want to play the traditional one, I can just go play D&D or RuneQuest, Why don't I need to do it in the Cthulhu world? But it's fine that it's out there. I mean, I love seeing it. Well, here's an example. Alien is a great horror movie. Aliens is a great action movie with horror elements. Yeah. So you can do both. It's not like horror is destroyed by being an action movie. It's just no longer a horror movie.
Yeah, that's a great point. But I definitely wanted to hit on that, because I know I have at least one friend that is a huge Call of Cthulhu fan, and he's going to be nerding out to know that I talked to you. So
awesome.
That's amazing. So from there, you go and you end up working for id Software, ID Software, and you develop on Doom.
Yeah, I did most of the levels for Doom 1 and 2, and I did one of the episodes for Quake. Before then, I was at Microprose Software, and I worked on, among other things, because in a computer game, there's always a team. There's no one guy, right? I worked on Civilization, among other games. So,
did you notice when you got out of the gaming industry, like circa 2010, were the teams you were working on far more expansive than they would have been?
They kept getting bigger and bigger, and I'm going to take issue with getting out of the. I'm out of the digital gaming world.
Gotcha.
I'm still making games, and in fact, you can get my games at petersengames.com. And
we'll bring it up here. I was looking at this earlier, by the way.
And in fact, if you're not on our newsletter, so you haven't seen this before, then when you go on there for the first time, you can get 20% off your order by signing up for the newsletter. And since some of the games are pretty expensive, that's a good deal.
That's amazing. Do you think that like the Cthulhu mythos is still like the primary motivator for most of the games you're creating now?
It shows up in them Evil High Priest is you're the head of a cult trying to summon Cthulhu, against the other rival heads that are trying to summon Cthulhu, but they're inferior to you. You must stop them. There's Cthulhu Wars, which is about the great old ones rising up to destroy the world. You have to fight them. Hyperspace, my newest game, is an outer space game in the future, but because Lovecraft's monsters are actually aliens, like they're in space too, so they aren't all Lovecraft monsters, but some of them are. So there's a horror theme. Planet Apocalypse has no Cthulhu stuff. It's about the Book of Revelation, and then hell rising up to destroy the world. But it certainly is a horror-based game.
That's amazing, and I think that it's a genre that I don't think is tackled in a good way. Oftentimes, it seems that a lot of horror goes in these trends. So I've noticed with movies, it's you'll get 6 years of zombie movies, right? Then you get the vampire movies. It's Hollywood doesn't take it seriously. Yeah.
No, they don't. But the thing is, for a long time, and Lovecraft struggled with this, the horror genre is a genre that's not taken seriously by a lot of creators. It's one of the advantages of this is usually there's not big budget Hollywood horror movies to mess it up. It's more indies, But Lovecraft wrote a whole essay called "Supernatural Horror Literature," where he fought for horror being a real genre and not inferior to the others, because obviously that's what he thought. But it was, but Hollywood can be so bad. Except I will give them credit. The movie Underwater, did you see it?
No.
Okay, so here's the bad. It's got Kirsten Stewart. Okay, so here's the good. She mostly just has to look determined and not act, so that's good. And then it has Lovecraft monsters in it, so I dug that. And they eat her, so what could be better?
That's great. That's amazing. It's very much I think what I always resonated with horror. I was talking about this last night because I knew I'd be talking to you. For me, I always like the horror anthology movies because to me, horror is like a feeling, and you could tell a good horror story in 10 to 15 minutes. Whereas you don't need these deep protagonists. In fact, most of the Hollywood horror movies are very shallow protagonists anyways. You really don't care to see them interacting with their friends at high school. Well, it's this feeling,
Well, there's a reason Stephen King's short stories are really good and his novels are a tedious slog.
Yep, you're absolutely right.
It's absolutely the case. Lovecraft's longest story he ever wrote was 130 pages. So he knew that. He had short, punchy stuff. And
it's the atmosphere. It's right. The unknown. That's what makes it scary. So it's the more you know about the life. And so even the last I saw, oh my gosh, I'm going to mess up the name of the story, but it's Pickman's Model, right? Is that the name of it?
That's the very first Lovecraft story I read. I was 8 years old and I read that, and that's what hooked me. I'd already read Poe because I was one of those annoying, precocious kids that reads everything. But man, Lovecraft got me with that story.
So I think it was Guillermo del Toro did House of, what's it called? There was a series that you could find on Netflix, Cabinet of Curiosities, and they redid Pickman's Model, and it stars as Pickman is Crispin Glover, and it's actually very good. I enjoyed it. It's a little more bleak than the story, the Lovecraft story, and it's I don't know how I feel about the ending because it's. One of the things that I really enjoy about horror is when it's left more open, where you have to sort of imagine where the characters go from here. Oh, yeah. There's not much imagining. They pretty much sum it up, by the end of it, but still very good. And it's amazing to see, I think, like you said, largely because of you, how ubiquitous Lovecraft is now in our society. I don't know that in the 70s it would have been as familiar. Even what is Cthulhu? I've never heard that term. Now it's the not only Cthulhu itself and sort of the direct stories of Lovecraft, but the inspiration of it you could see all over the place in media.
Other movies are seeing it seep in. The Void, The Empty Man, stuff like that. They use Lovecraft ideas because they're so strong. They're different from the regular horror. And of course, the funny thing is, here I am, a devout Christian, goes to church every Sunday, and Lovecraft was a complete atheist. He wasn't anti-religion, though. He just thought it wasn't true. One of his friends once said, "Hey, Lovecraft, I'm an atheist like you, and I'm getting married, and I'm not going to have a big church wedding." And Lovecraft said, "What are you, an idiot? Those big church weddings are awesome. There's all that panoply and ritual that resonates with the human mind. Go get the big church wedding."
What's funny, it's funny you bring that up. An atheist that I really looked up to, and this is going to get me in a lot of trouble, was Christopher Hitchens. Because as a debater, I thought Hitchens was a tremendous debater. And I remember watching Hitchens one time. They asked him what he liked about religion and Christianity. And he talked a lot about the art and the architecture and the awe-inspiring works.
Which atheism has not really inspired. in atheist culture is look at what USSR art. It's giant and soulless. Ditto the Nazis, which, as you know, I'm sure were fundamentally atheist.
Yeah. Well, and it's very much like
it in their country, but they were atheists.
Sure. Like I remember watching a Tucker Carlson episode where he was talking about our architecture today, right, and how soulless it is now. And I think that a lot of that has to do. I don't think it's coincidental that as we become more secularist, our architecture is like the sort of artistic nature of it has precipitously declined. It feels like everything is designed to be like depressing and cold and sterile. And I think that there's a reason that you see these like cultures, these Christian cultures of Europe, like how elaborate and how uplifting sort of their architecture and their.
Yeah, I mean, I've been there. I've been to the cathedral where Charlemagne was crowned. I've been to Notre Dame. It's just amazing. And then after seeing Notre Dame, I go downstairs to see the Pompidou Center, and it's such an abomination compared to Notre Dame. It's like, what the hell in France? How low have you fallen,
It's crazy. I saw one of these churches, these old churches in the UK. They recently redesigned the interior with graffiti so that it would feel. And
I saw that. That was crazy. Now in there, I don't want to defend them much, but they did use stickers, not actual graffiti.
Well, there you go. That's stupid. Right. I have a 4-year-old son. That's how we do things around here. Like, here's stickers; those are easily removed. Put down those markers, But it's absolutely crazy. You brought it up, so I'll ask you this because I've heard this reference. Like, as a Christian, how do you like explain to someone how it's okay to have interest in things that are like blatantly non-Christian, like the idea of eldritch horrors or something like that?
The most puzzling thing to me was people would say, well, Doom is so satanic. How can you do that? And I'm like, you're shooting the demons. You're literally trying to kill the bad guys. How is that satanic? And of course, in the game, like you're in Hell's anteroom, so the decoration is like Satan's decorations. But you're not a monster. Of course, then I also got blamed for the Columbine shootings and Tipper Gore and Joe Lieberman literally stood up in Congress and held copies of my game and like, this is evil. So that was awesome. It was weird that you think the conservatives, the Republicans, be the one that would harsh super badly on games, and they do say things about it, but they don't do anything to suppress it. Whereas the Democrats will do things to suppress it.
Yeah, like Doom to me, it's almost like a Dante's Inferno type allegory, like where you're traversing hell, except instead of Dante just being a passive observer, it's like, what if Dante had a shotgun? Like that's it, right? Like that's basically what's happening. Really amazing. I remember. Do you remember this dude Jack Thompson, this lawyer back in the 90s?
Oh man, that guy was the bane of my existence.
Yeah.
For everyone's existence in the movie theater, in the gaming field, but that guy sucked. I remember bothered about D&D where they blamed D&D. Luckily, they were so ignorant about role-playing games, they mostly just focused on Dungeons & Dragons. They didn't make their way to Call of Cthulhu very often. But of course, nowadays, it's not about the satanic stuff because everyone's a Satanist, I guess. Sure. Now it's because I wasn't properly supportive of LGBTQ stuff or whatever. There's a video on YouTube I was looking for in my own videos, and its title was that I was the biggest chud in gaming. So I guess that's for me.
They're only one letter off if they went with Chad, but look at that's interesting because obviously we're going to get more into like sort of the digital games, but I do want to ask you this. What do you think of sort of traditional like pen and paper RPGs? It was traditionally something I think that was more guys involved with it, and it seemed to have opened up now to the point where everyone's joking. I'm sure you've seen this, like the recent painting that Wizards of the Coast put out from D&D, where it's like you got the Beholder and everyone's like two guys.
Oh my god, that got so much flack on X. I posted images of it and I would circle the Beholder and then I put a quote from the Monster Manual saying Beholders are evil monsters that are constantly harshing and doing terrible, right? But yeah, well, here's the thing. So I started playing D&D in 1974, which is literally the year it came out. Okay, I was just a college kid, and it was all guys. And over the years, it was usually 95% dudes. And if a girl was there, it's because her boyfriend was there. A few girls were on their own, right? But then I did Call of Cthulhu. I noticed that Call of Cthulhu had a lot more girls. It was like 20, 25%, 30% girls. And I think it's because girls like horror movies. as much as guys do, right? And they're not that interested in like, let's kill the dragon and be a, right, that kind of thing. And here, there was an interesting experiment in a sense that was done on my behalf, which is that Call of Cthulhu in Japan is the #1 role-playing game. D&D never got a really good foothold there. So in America, if you want to play Call of Cthulhu, first you must play D&D first. Right. It's the barrier, right? Like you're in that barrier, so you haven't broken through to Call of Cthulhu.
That's right. Yeah.
But so any girl that gets to Call of Cthulhu must play D&D first and then get to Call of Cthulhu. But in Japan, they can start with Call of Cthulhu. And as a result, 70% of the players in Japan are women.
Really? Yeah. That's amazing.
And it's not just a little game there. There's more copies of my game sold in Japan than the rest of the world combined. And it's not obscure in the rest of the world.
That's unbelievable.
Which means the average player of my game is an 18 to 35-year-old Japanese woman. So there's an incentive to play it.
That's awesome. Yeah, there you go, single guys. I noticed you put this tweet out. You reposted this. I thought it was funny. There we have. I'll zoom this up.
I know. I love this.
It's the Beholder. In 2025, you're gay. He is shocked. Like he's like, what? Yeah. I mean, it is crazy. It does seem though that people have sort of that there are people with ideological considerations that are getting into these spaces and they want to remake the space in their image as opposed to genuinely coming into a space that's already has. I mean, you're talking Call of Cthulhu, you're making in like the mid 80s and people are coming into it now and demanding changes and stuff, not specifically that game, but the role-playing genre. And I think it's for the worse. I think that you see a lot of these changes that are bad.
My granddaughters who were in their teens asked me to run a Call of Cthulhu game for them and their friends. So I printed out some modern Call of Cthulhu character sheets, the most recent ones, and there was a section for pronouns. So that I was like, okay, whatever.
It's surreal. I mean, it really is. I don't know. To me, it feels like this movement where there are all these places. The left will never give up. Like they're very good. You can tip their cap to this, that they look at and will look at somewhere. Like I look at like a Lifetime original movie. I have no interest in it, right? I don't want to be part of it. Like if the left will look at that and say, we're not there. Why? We need to infiltrate. Right. And so I think that they looked at a lot of these things, both video games and pen and paper games, and were like, what is it about these communities that are male dominated or that are dominated by people that are either apolitical or they aren't putting their politics in it? And how could we make this sort of a vehicle to drive our political and cultural agenda?
I think what has generally been happening is that game developers who were more or less leaning right, like me, we long ago learned how to shut up in our team meetings, right? That's how it is. Like leftists often have no idea that there's right wingers around them. You know, it's like if you know that friend of yours that never says anything political, he's right wing.
Yep.
Right. Okay. So we shut up. Okay. The apolitical guys don't care. And then the leftist guys come in and they care passionately and they start taking over the space. And the apolitical guys, yeah, sure, whatever. And the right wing guys either get driven out or just shut up even more. And so the left kind of takes over. Plus, you got to remember the movers and the guys who are dominating the culture in a game company are not the actual devs. It's like the suits at the top. It's like marketers and stuff, which is places that crazy leftists can go because you don't need talent to be that job. Yeah. And then they can suppress all the devs.
Yeah. So one of the things I wanted to talk about in the medium of like, digital video games, I saw this post. I think instead of trying to fumble through a question for you, I think this post basically sums up what I wanted to ask you. You say, this is just from the other day. You say, here's the life cycle of a game company. First, there's a passionate team forms that makes a great game. Second, they get bigger. They're still passionate. Make another great game. At this point, there's a fork in the road and you must choose only one. 3A, you lose your soul and become big and awful. This is what happened to Microprose. 3B, you're bought by a giant soulless corporation and your soul is eaten by them. This is what happened to Ensemble Studios. Or 3C, you're murdered by the giant soulless corporation, but at least your soul could go to heaven. This is what happened at Rogue Entertainment. Like, talk to me a little, I think this is specifically in reference to a lot of these studios that then get, they'll make a passionate game and then all of a sudden it's like they're bought out or they're forced out by these studios.
You ever play Spyro the Dragon or Crash Bandicoot back in the day?
Absolutely, both
of them. Remember how awesome it was?
Yep.
Remember how like the third or fourth, I forget what it was a terrible, terrible game in the series? it's because that's when the giant company decided to take the franchise, which they owned, away from the original guys and give it to a new, cheaper team.
It's unbelievable. Like, what do you say?
It also happened to Banjo-Kazooie.
Yeah.
We had 2 great Banjo-Kazooie things. Then there was Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts. It was a whole new team, and it sucked. And that's exactly what happens. The publishers say, well, that team is great, but we need to put it give it to a cheaper team. And the cheaper team, in the first place, they're paid less. They aren't as passionate. It's not their franchise. What do they care? And it all goes to hell. This is not just true of games. This is true of movies. That's how we got Superman 3 back in the day and Batman and Robin, right? The original guy, Sam Raimi leaves the Spider-Man franchise, and it kind of goes to hell in a handbasket when you lose the guys who actually care.
It's very interesting. I think that, there's so many ways that we could look at this. I think one of the things, you tell me if you think this is the basis of that, in the effort to make money from these big studios that are sort of like, faceless giant conglomerates, right, that are just like money, money, money. They don't care about the artistic nature. I think that they still don't realize, and it's never going to hit them, that like just buying an IP and being like, oh, this is a moneymaker, we'll just churn something out. They don't have the artistic talent.
No, it's a commodity to them. It's like making soda. Why can't they just make soda with a different company? Okay, just have someone else do Banjo-Kazooie. We have the rights to the art, but they don't get it because the guys come, and this is going to sound anti-capitalist in a sense, but the guys that come in at the top they aren't always creative, and then often the guys at the very top will pull in someone from like Electronic Arts to run the company. Those guys are nightmares.
Yeah, well, didn't they EA just sold out to like Saudi Arabia or something? Isn't that true? That like I think they just were bought out by.
Frankly, I would say Saudi Arabia could probably do a better job than the trolls that used to run EA, right?
Well,
doing the John Madden football number 98.
Same thing, man. Dude, like think about I still remember. So one of my first like video games that I really got into was on the NES. It was Tecmo Bowl, just a simple football game, like side-scrolling football game. There are people that still put out the current roster, right, with that game. So you can play the game and they do the current roster. That's Madden. It's the same game every year. It's like you could literally just put out a new roster and be done with it. But nope, they're going to charge you $69.99 or whatever for the current game. It's surreal.
Yeah, well, that's how that's their plan, right? So here's an example from my own life. So I'm more at not Electronic Arts, Ensemble Studios, starts with an E. We do Age of Empires. It's a hit. We do Age of Empires 2. It's a gigantic super hit. And it was such a big hit that Microsoft bought us, okay, which was a good thing for me personally because my worthless Ensemble Studios stock options became actual Microsoft stock options.
Nice.
All right, and then we do Age 3, not as big as hit as Age 2, but Age 2 was like a unicorn,
Right.
Age 3 did well, and then they bring in a guy that decides that his best, Don Matrick is his name, his interests are best served if he kills us and cashes in not paying our salaries. We were an expensive studio, and then goes into something else. So he fires everyone at Ensemble Studios. But we found out ahead of time before our game was done, Halo Wars. So he had to give us like a really sweet severance thing, which he was unhappy about. But now then he was going to go on something else. But now Microsoft said, "What the hell? We have to keep the Age of Empires franchise alive." So they're still doing Age of Empires stuff even now. The definitive edition, the Age 3 Reborn, the Age of Empires 4, but they're all just riffs on the original. They aren't doing anything new because that ability, I guess, is gone.
So if you're younger, right? Like if there's a young guy in the same position you were when you got started into this, like what do you say to them? Because basically, as you put it in that post there, your path out is inevitably, if you have enough success, you're going to have one of these big studios that comes a knocking. What would you recommend to them?
Okay, so here's the thing, though. Okay, when a big studio buys you or kills your company, you're not dead. You still got to cash in on your awesome game, and now you have a really great resume, and you go somewhere else. You found a new team, or you join another small company, and you keep the game industry isn't like you can go work for Ford and just stay there for 30 years.
Right.
You're going to be moving around. I had to move from California to Maryland and to Texas, right? But every time I got an increase in pay, I got to be a new smaller company. It was a hit, So it's not the end of the world. Like when Microsoft fired everyone at Ensemble Studios, they lost Ensemble Studios, and not one of us was dead afterwards. We founded a bunch of new companies, Boss Fight Games, Robot Entertainment. I did my own company, Petersen Games, and we all went and did all these awesome things, all of which compete with Microsoft. So that's the part that the suits don't think about.
Are you a gamer yourself? Are you playing games?
Oh boy, I play. Look, the only games I design are games that I want to play that I don't have one that does that.
That's awesome.
So, for example, I'm really interested in World War II, but I've never done a World War II game because there's so many good World War II games. I don't feel the urge.
Sure.
But yeah, I still play games. I was playing games this last week. I was playing Call of Cthulhu with my granddaughters.
That's amazing. That's awesome.
With granddaughters, you have to set it like for teenagers. It's not like the super gore thing. So it was like the haunted sleepover kind of event. But
right.
But they still loved it. So.
Well, with the video games specifically, I find myself the majority of purchases that I don't purchase a lot now, but the majority of ones I do are like basically like remakes from old systems that I no longer have. Like I just bought this game, Final Fantasy Tactics.
Yeah.
I remember it from my childhood. That's why I bought it.
Well, same as in movies, right? If you're considering a movie, it's going to be a sequel or a remake. In games, that's often the case. That's why you want to look for the new companies doing new things. They're the exciting, cool stuff.
Someone asked, I'll read the super chat. I'll remind you, if you guys have questions, let me know. If they're pertinent, put a super chat in. Bad Cramps Gramps, thank you so much for $5. Says, have you played Baldur's Gate 3 or Expedition 33?
I have played Baldur's Gate, and I've been recommended strongly to try Expedition 33, which I have not yet played. I think turn-based games, but look, I worked on Civilization, which is totally a turn-based game, right? I think that, and of course, my board games, like Hyperspace, which I will now show you a copy of.
Yeah, let's see it.
Multiplayer, asymmetrical, space conquest, exploration, extermination, research game. Takes about an hour and a half, 2 hours to play, up to 6 players. So
that's awesome.
It's turn-based. It's hard to do a board game that is simultaneous play.
Correct. Yeah.
But in computer games, it seems like when after doing Civilization, and I wasn't the chief guy in Civilization, I wasn't even number 2. I was number like 6 or 7, but that's okay. I still got to work with Civilization. Then years later, I go on. I'm doing Age of Empires, which is simultaneous movement all the time. And I got to say, I was really won over by the real time aspect. That was cool.
Do you ever regret like not putting your name on something like Sid Meier? Like Civilization is Sid Meier's Civilization, right? Like, oh snap! There it is. Yeah, that'll out like long when you retire. That'll be there, right? When people are buying versions of that, when my grandkids are buying versions of it, right?
But you gotta know your name. Game companies don't want you to know the names of the guys that did it, because they want you to associate the game with their company, not with a dude that they might not have. And because Sid Meier owned half of Microprose, it was a little different for him, and it's hard to get known. But usually they don't want you to know who the people are, the developers that work on it.
That's awesome. Have you tried any of the new Doom games? What do you think of that?
I played Doom 3, and man, it sucked. It gobbled donkey goober. I did try Doom Eternal, and I like that quite a bit. I have not tried Doom Dark Ages.
Eternal, I'm the same.
What happened with id Software is they got successful, and then they got the mighty hubris, and the fate got them where another company bought them, and then gradually the id guys got demoted in the thing because they kept sucking in the new corporate structure, and they eventually all left to do something else. Okay, but the team that's there now doing Doom are actually pretty smart guys, and they're actually very dedicated to it. So it's a rare exception to the new team is cheap and crappy and doesn't care about it. These guys actually care about it. So so I wish that one of the guys married my neighbor. So
there you go. What a weird connection.
It does occasionally happen, though. It took them a while to recover.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I remember that terrible Doom. I think it was just called Doom, right? That came out, and it was so I don't mean dark like scary. I mean literally dark. Like I tried playing that game years ago. I couldn't even see what I was doing.
Yeah, it's like
it was like they tried to do this like cookie cutter thing that all these other games like that were doing, and I think they forgot what made Doom great. And sort of the newer Dooms, it went back to sort of like action, right? That's when I played Doom, right? Like, yeah, the setting and the story and the atmosphere and the music was all awesome. It like put you in this mood, but it was action. That's what made the game fun, you know?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, Doom 3, that's after I left, right? But the main designer they had there was very interested in making everything look all cool and artsy. So you'd have this huge, brilliantly developed level that was all dark and spooky, so you couldn't see it. And then there's like one monster at the end with this, right? And I was more about, let's blow up all the monsters, you know?
But when you play Doom, right? Like, and I think that there's something that maybe games today lose some of this, where like, how long does it take you from booting up Doom to where you're first like shooting a bad guy? Half a second? Like
that. Now we did set up most of the levels so that if you don't touch any buttons when a first level loads, there's no one attacking you yet. And the idea for that was specifically you can go have a pee break, get a soda,
right,
come back and not worry about being killed. There was one level where I blew it, and there's monsters that see you and shoot you, but usually their backs are turned or something. They start up pretty fast, but we always thought about the gamers, or tried to, you know. And then it's like back in the day, you could just up the gamma so you could see it anyway. Maybe the gamers can't do that now, but you know, for dark levels, so we didn't care so much. We didn't want to be so dark they couldn't see it, because I don't like that in movies either. So.
What do you think about, I don't know if people know this, I happen to be somewhat aware of this. What do you think about like the modding community? The original Doom is still huge with the modding community that like make all these crazy mods for the game.
I think that's how you keep a game alive, you know. Obviously some of the mods are terrible and some of them are stupid and some of them are twisted, but the fact that they exist, you know, is what keeps it going. That's like my game Call of Cthulhu. It's from 1981. It's like 50 years old or more, right? Or not yet, not 50 years old yet. But then there's all these guys making their own adventures, their own monsters, their own great old ones, their own ideas, and that's cool. That makes it lively. In Japan, they open sourced Call of Cthulhu, so anyone could do adventures for it. So at the convention I went to there was all these people, 70% women, with their one little pamphlet with like an anime picture on the front, and then their little adventure that you could play selling it there. And I thought that was like so dynamic and cool. Anytime a company tries to suppress that or control it or limit it, they're killing their seed corn. You know, let the players have fun with it.
Yeah, that's great. I totally agree. One thing I wanted to ask you, in sort of from a right-wing perspective, when we're talking about things being woke, it seems as if not just in video games, but also in other forms of entertainment like movies, this shows, a lot of times it seems like the people that are creating this, maybe largely because it's these soulless like corporations that are demanding it, but it seems like the message comes before fun. Like, do you see that? And do you see that like a lot of game developers now, particularly the big studios, have gotten away from asking like, what do people want to play? And instead they're trying to put some sort of cultural message in as the first thought?
Well, you got to remember, that's the first thing you learn in Marxist theory, is that everything is political, all art is political, therefore all games is political, therefore if your game is not pushing your political thing, you're bad.
Crazy. And it's like, and what ends up happening is that instead of like, I think what a true artist would do, make something that's enjoyable to be consumed. If it's a game, make it fun to play. If it's a movie, make it fun to watch.
I'm not here to give you my political theories. I imagine most people who play Doom or Age of Empires have no idea what my politics are, right? And they should. Why should they? It's not like my politics have anything to do with the Aztec conquest,
right?
You know? Right? But I'm there to. My job is to make things that are fun for other people to play. And
that's amazing. Now, how much of like you know, the sort of financial aspect of this comes in? Are you thinking like when you're creating these games, like, well, I'm going to make this decision that's not really my artistic vision, but it would be more sellable? Or how do you evaluate that?
I have a specific theory about that, and what it is that I think that a game that is passionately loved by a smaller group of people will do way better than a game that everyone is kind of, yeah, I guess it's okay.
I think you're right. I think, they obviously become, because ultimately I think what happens is, like, for example, if you look at Call of Cthulhu or you look at Doom, what happened was, even if it seemed like a niche market at first, look at what it's blown up into.
Well, so after the guys that play it, they get all these expansions, all these adventures. They pour money into it, because they're hooked. No one's going to buy expansions for a game that's. By the way, there's someone that gave you $5 that had a question in case I need to answer it.
Sure. Yeah, it was. Let's see. For $5, Ron Quay, thanks, says, it's a shame I didn't know your name behind some of the games I love. I loved AoE growing up. Did you work on Star Wars Battlegrounds, too?
I did do some work on Star Wars Battlegrounds that used our same system that we used in Age of Empires. And also we did a Star Trek game that used that same system. Mostly it was done by the actual team on it. They hired our thing away. We gave them suggestions. We played it and gave them feedback. But it was their game, not ours. So we thought that the more we'll give them criticisms, but we aren't going to go in there and like step in and make decisions for them, because we hated it when someone did that for us.
Yeah. My friend Avarice, who was on before you came on and was nerding out, wants to know, what game do you think that you made has the most impact?
Wow.
That's tough.
Okay, I guess the game that made the most impact is Doom. And here's why. Because before Doom, nobody played games head-to-head. You might play side-to-side in your living room, Mario Kart or something, but you didn't play over your modem, over the internet head-to-head. And in fact, I worked on a game, Command HQ, which was intended to be played head-to-head. And the developer, Dan Button, who later on became Danielle Barry, he wanted to have, or whatever you want to call it, they wanted to have a game. Everyone has modems. We should do a head-to-head game. And it just bombed because nobody wanted to play head-to-head. So when we did Doom, I said to everyone, I don't think anyone's going to play this head-to-head. And they say, yeah, we don't think they are either. But we're going to leave the code in for it because we like playing head-to-head, us personally. And that's what we cared about. And then it turned out, then it blew it up. And now every game has a head-to-head component. Entire industries are on that. So that probably made the biggest impact because before then, no head-to-head games. Everyone's like playing with themselves in the darkness of the room, and now everyone, like, you see the guy now sitting there in his room playing dark. He's actually interacting with a bunch of other people.
Well, it's an entire industry. For me as a streamer,
and Doom started that.
Yeah, how many people that are on Twitch or on YouTube whose entire career is streaming, playing like a first-person shooter head-to-head against people online. It really is. To think that it became a multi-billion-dollar industry off that one game you were working on, that's quite impressive.
Here's the funny thing. So at id, we hired this guy to do our networking code because John Carmack didn't want to do it because that was boring. He only wanted to do fun stuff. So we hired this other outside guy who lived in California. And then 2 weeks before the game's supposed to be sold, we called him up and say, hey, we don't have your code yet. And and the idea was he was supposed to give us the code. And then after, he was working for another company, but they knew he was doing it, we thought. And then when he finished, he would come work for us. And so instead, we got his administrator says, hey, he knew you're supposed to know he's doing this, and is he ready yet? And the guy said, oh, so we really like him as a programmer, but he's a pathological liar, so you have to watch him all the time. And he hasn't done a lick of work on your code at all. He just took your money and ran. And, and so we're like, what?
That's
so Ron Carmack had to throw together networking code in 2 weeks, which was so terrible that it crashed almost every college's internal network as soon as it came out, and it got banned all over the place. And then we got another guy to come and do real networking code, and it was working. But it was like, there's some really weird guys working in the game field.
Have you planned to put your new games into the Metaverse VR system?
You mean my tabletop board games?
Yeah, I don't think that the tabletop. No. Let's re-reference this. What do you think about sort of like the idea of VR and what that will lead to video games going forward?
A good friend of mine, in fact, Paul, who designed the Words with Friends game, which you may be familiar with.
Yeah.
Got a huge virtual reality set, and I got to go to his company offices, which he founded, and I play with it, and it was really cool. And I kept thinking, this is probably more advanced than we have now. Will it ever be? It was cool. Will it be practical? I don't know. It's like I enjoyed it. I would love it to be a thing. I don't think it's a thing yet.
Yeah, I agree. But one of the things that actually I think is interesting is like mobile gaming, like you see in your phones. You see all these like I guess they call them, like,
laughed that to scorn, and now I play games on that thing all the time.
yeah, and like so for me, like there's all these games that like it's weird. Like I'd be interested to know like what you think about like the psychology of gaming. I'll find myself playing these stupid like idle games where you just go on like once a day and you click a couple things and then it does stuff when you're offline. And it almost feels more like work. I don't know what brings me back to it. Because like if I sit back afterwards, I'm like, did I actually have fun doing that? It's like, oh, it's 7 p.m. That's when the game resets.
Yeah, fun. They're trying to hook you into going there and clicking and occasionally, right? And a lot of those games, they feed off the whales. You know about that, right?
Yes.
Yeah, they have 1,000 guys that don't put a penny in. There's one guy that puts $50,000 a year. That's the guy they're trying to hook. They're trying to turn you into that guy.
Well, it's weird because I think that,
but it's not being designed by the fun guys. I mean, fun guys might have been in it early, but it's designed by these soulless, heartless villains. You know,
money. Like, how can we maximize the profit coming in? That's it. Yeah. And it's like they really do have it down to a science. You're right with this whale thing. Like they know that like there are people sitting in boardrooms that could care less about like the funness of the game. They have it down to like a mathematical formula how to maximize. Like even the thing like I've seen them do like let's say if you ever played one of these phone games where it starts out and it's like you could do a bunch of cool stuff and then all of a sudden you hit a wall and it's like well if you pay $100 for these diamonds, then you can keep doing the cool stuff.
Yeah,
like
we all do that. Candy Crush, all the rest of them. So I remember, I back in 1997, I was interviewing with a company that recently been bought by. Can't remember the name. It's the guys that did the farming sim on Facebook back in the
the
90s. I can't remember the name of it. It was this huge thing then, right?
Zynga or something? Was that
Zynga, yeah, or Zynga. So those guys were doing all this stuff. And then I was interviewing and they said, well, you got to make sure the guys at Zynga will want you to do this. They want you to do this. And they want you to do this. And I'm like, what are they doing? Well, they're trying to maximize the number of times that you will click in the system and spend time there a day. So they add extra boxes to click on. And I said, because that increases the numbers. And I said, and are you okay with that? And they said, well, we think it's kind of like the old example of the scientist that cuts off a frog's leg and it still jumps nearly as far, cuts off another leg and it still jumps nearly as far. So it cuts off a third leg, it jumps 3/4 as far. So he's, I guess if I cut out the fourth leg, it'll still jump 60%, but eventually you kill that franchise, which is what happened with Zynga, of course.
Yes. Yeah. I remember that they were everywhere. Like they and then of course, eventually, well, like going along with that, like, I don't know how much you follow like the idea of like loot boxes and stuff. There was a big like Counter-Strike story.
Yeah, I know. I have a friend that works for Gearbox, and the whole loot box thing was there, and I was actually pretty excited when Gabe like killed the knife.
Yeah, it's a big a big story. If people haven't been following, like awesome. Millions of dollars like lost because they're like, you know what, we're gonna like end this sort of like insanity with these knife skins and whatever in a game like Counter-Strike. But does it surprise you how effective that is in getting people to sort of keep throwing their money? Because at the end of the day, like, I can't imagine when you're working on a game like Doom or Quake or Age of Empires that you're like, hey, people might throw like an extra $20 at this game after they buy it for a new skin, a new color on this horse.
You're only trying to make the game as fun as possible. It's someone from above that comes in and says you have to do this. And I'll tell you, even back in the 90s, there was the guys that came in that I guess they weren't woke by the modern levels, but they still, like, here's an example. So in Age of Empires 3 is about colonizing the New World. So right there's an issue because they're Native Americans, right? So the way we portrayed them was we had trading posts that you couldn't destroy, but whoever built a trading post at Indian villages, right, they could then recruit those Indian warriors. So we'd see lots of Indians in the game, and it was cool. And everyone loved the Indians, right? So Age 3, so the War Chiefs expansion, I added the Indians as a playable civilization. Okay, that you could be. So you could be like the British or the French or the Dutch or the Portuguese or the Spanish or the Aztecs or the Sioux, or the Iroquois. So that was pretty cool. And then Microsoft comes in with their team and they say, well, this is bad because if you're playing them as a civ, you can be wiped out and defeated.
Right.
And I said, well, so can the white man, right? They're all able to be defeated. They go, oh, it's not good to let the Indians be killed. And all these guys are white as the driven snow, right? That are saying this. And so here's how I got to have my way. We got this paper that they had done a study of the Indians, which they presented to whatever native tribe lives in Redmond, Washington, and gotten with their feet on it. And what the Indians said was, we think Indians should be a playable civ, and we can stand, live, or die on our own merits instead of just being these little subject states. And we said, this is what the Indians said. What did you say again? And they're like they didn't like that the Indians didn't back them up.
It's interesting. Even like professional sports, like the Redskins, the Indians, the Cleveland Indians, like when they would interview like a lot of people that were Indian.
Gonzalez.
Right.
Mexicans love this guy.
It's always so
Slowpoke. What's his last name? Gomez. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Yeah. They love them both. And it's like it's all white guys that are offended on their behalf, right?
It's not it's some ad guy with a PhD that's like white, like you said, white as the driven snow. Like the Mexicans don't care. They're like, it's funny
that we can't eat rice because it's from Asia.
Cultural appropriation. Bruce wants to know: have you ever personally played in a Quake tournament?
That is a lose-lose for me, because if I win, then everyone says, well, you're a developer, so I don't get to credit. And if I lose, they go, I beat the developer. So I just try to stay away from that kind of thing.
That's funny. Quake was very interesting. I remember when it came out. I played Doom, but Quake
tournaments and the Quake clans blew us away. We were so impressed. It did.
And it really was a moment, because I was born in '84, so I was right in like that time when Quake, and that was the first game that I remember. Like I didn't even have a computer really that I used to play game, and I remember my friends.
94, so you were like 3 years old during Quake.
Quake, which one would, like the Quake that came out when I would have been like 11, 12. So this would have been
that was Quake 3, Quake 2 or 3, I think.
Yeah, and it was
that all online. Yeah, that was a big deal.
And it was like that was the first game that I remember like. My friends had computers that were playing, and it was because to me, video gaming up to that point was Nintendo, right? Mm-hmm. Duck Hunt, Mario. The idea of playing that with someone online was like, what are you talking about? That was nuts. You play with the guy that's sitting right next to you. So, very interesting. I think you're absolutely right about like the effect Doom had.
Here's another example of corporate brilliance. So I'm working on Age of Empire, expansion for Age of Empires, the Conquerors. And I had Huns, and I had Aztecs, and I had Mayans, and I had Spanish for my Conquerors. And we're almost done, and Microsoft comes in, some suit, and says, you need to add Koreans to it. And I was like, hey, Koreans are awesome, but they weren't conquerors, to their credit, right? They stayed in their lane. And they said, but StarCraft sold 3 million copies in Korea. Their argument. So my counter argument was, there's no Koreans in StarCraft. That's not why. Right. But then they just looked at me blankly and said, but StarCraft sold 3 million copies. And when you repeat the same argument, it means you're not subject to new information.
That's right.
So I just had to buckle down and add Koreans. But the Koreans were cool and all, but I just didn't think they fit the theme of Conquerors.
It's very interesting. It has to be so frustrating as someone who's got this primary goal, and then you have these other people coming in, and it's like, yes, but we're trying to monetize this, so we need you to
failed. Like we didn't get big sales in Korea. We had some sales, but because we sold everywhere, but we didn't get any 3 million sales in Korea.
Legion of Myth wants to know, thank you so much for the $20. Says, Sandy, what are your thoughts on people who hate Lovecraft and create full-page disclaimers about how horrible he is, writing games and supplements from his work?
They are absolute parasites on him. They are using his talent and skill to boost themselves. Look, I don't agree with Lovecraft's political and religious theories, but I don't write full-page things like debunking him. Like what was the point of that? I respect the things he did that I liked, and I don't respect the things he believed that I don't agree with. But spending time like virtue signaling by like Lovecraft was a terrible person because he hated Jews even though he married one, and he hated other races even though he had them be heroes in his games, in his books rather, and he was bad, and he was racist, But here's the thing: racism is a terrible thing, but it's not a flaw of being sinful. It's a flaw of education. right? You need to learn more to stop being racist. And also Lovecraft, as he got older, remember he died pretty young.
Yeah.
He got less racist over time, which isn't that the direction that we want every racist to go. So
it's all virtue signaling garbage. By the way, the same people
garbage, and I think they are literally parasites. If you really hate Lovecraft, then you probably shouldn't be doing stuff based on his work.
Yes, totally agree. The idea is, by the way, they'll be overtly racist in the most disgusting ways possible, and then they want to go back and criticize.
People, right? I mean,
yes,
or something. Yeah.
You know,
like, why don't you say orcs are black people? They don't
right.
Like
yes, that's a great point, right? Like it's like when I'm playing D&D or I'm watching like Lord of the Rings, I'm not like, oh, here come the blacks, like Sauron's commanding the blacks here. You're just like, oh, those are orcs. And then these people will be like, oh, because they're supposed to be black people. It's like, huh? Who thought that? No one accusing me of being racist. You're the one who thought that. You know, it is surreal.
One thing Lovecraft's famous for is that in one of the stories, Rats in the Walls, the guy's pet cat has like, I'm not going to say the word because someone will do just that clip from the show and get an example, but it's the bad N-word man. Okay. But here's the thing. That was the name of Lovecraft's cat when he was a kid. He was 9 years old when he owned that cat. Okay. I don't think he even named it. So blaming him for the name of his cat is like really stupid.
It's just, again, it's like the great works of these people that were like more artistic and more influential than they could ever hope to be. Much of it is, and in my opinion, I think Orwell nailed this. These socialists, these sorts of people, it's not about building up. It's about tearing people down that has something that they are incapable of having.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it. So.
Yeah. Well, if you can get people into your game by showing a gay beholder, then you don't have to be creative.
That's right. And, you know, let me ask you this. Given that you've been sort of outspoken, I don't think in a crazy way whatsoever, but you're public with a lot of opinions you have on things like trans ideology or communism.
Well, I mean, I try not to be super, I'm not, my thing's not primarily political. I just have my beliefs. I don't hide them.
Right. It would be like anyone else. Like if you're a carpenter and you go to Facebook and you're like, hey, I don't like what happened in the recent election. That doesn't mean that you're, building company that you're like, oh, we only do right-wing stuff. It's just you're a person. We have social media. Given that, though, what do you think your chances are if you wanted to put your hat in the ring and be like, you know what, I'd like to go for a AAA studio? What do you think your chances are of getting hired at a place like that would be?
Well, I have a pretty stellar resume, so I think I'd have a good shot at it.
You think they'd overlook it for they'd be like, you bring in dollars?
Well, it depends on the company, probably, but a lot of them would. They would ask, like, what about your evil political beliefs? And I said, did you see any of that in Age of Empires 3 or Doom? It's like, it's about the games, not about my politics.
Yeah. And I think that's the difference, right? Like the left-winger people.
Khan campaign, I'm trying to do his politics.
Right, exactly. No, it's a very good point. Do you think that we've sort of seen the pendulum swing back some? So you see a lot of backlash from a lot of these AAA studios.
That has been such a relief to see that. And now, of course, it takes a long time for it to filter through to the studios, right? But in general, the fact that we can go out and there's actually some areas where we can talk and I can defend the Second Amendment, is really nice. And I can do it. I can disagree with Trump about tons of stuff. I didn't like the tariffs because they hurt me personally. I understand his function behind it. It did make my games. I had to get an extra $30,000 to get my games out of Hawk in China.
Crazy.
So I didn't like that. But having disagreed with him and wishing like that he'd lost the election are two different things.
Well, and I think that what I've seen, and granted, I'm biased as someone on the right, but we disagree with each other all the time. Like, like on the left, you have to march lockstep with them, and if you run a field even just slightly, then knives come out. On the right,
Rowling, she's actually pretty left wing on most of her beliefs. She's like a raging feminist, right? But she doesn't. But her feminism goes to the point that she logically doesn't want men and women's spaces, so she's the worst.
Yeah, it's crazy. And it really is. It lets you know. Like, that's what I tell young people. Like, when the Republicans in like my state of Pennsylvania were asking like, how do we reach younger people? Maybe 10 years or 5 years ago when I started, I would be considered young, not so much anymore. But one of the things I talked about was like, we're not going to go through your history and find something that you said in high school in your yearbook that's slightly afoul of the message we believe in. So now we're going to bury you. But the left seems to have this ideological purity standard. And it's like, if you run afoul of it, like, that's it. We'll ruin your life. We'll get you fired. No one will ever want to work with you again.
Well, they're willing to turn a blind eye to it among guys they like sometimes, you know.
Yeah, of course.
Like
Jimmy Kimmel could wear blackface or Trudeau.
Absolutely unthinkably bad, and then well, it's okay because he's our man, you know.
Yeah, you got to keep towing the party line. That's it. Another video game question I have for you. What do you think of the idea that so much content now isn't completed when you buy the thing? So there'll be some sort of add-on that you could buy.
I think downloadable content comes straight from the bowels of Satan.
It's terrible, right?
It's terrible. When we did expansions for the game, so I guess you could claim that if you bought the Conqueror's expansion to Age of Empires 3, that was a form of downloadable content, but it was a big package with a lot of stuff, and you could buy it in a team thing. So I don't think it's the same thing exactly.
Yeah, and I think that like particularly
also, I hate being forced to play everything, be online the whole time you play a game.
Totally get it.
That's satanic.
Yeah, and like especially for story-driven games. Like if I play like a game like Final Fantasy and I beat it, that's it. That's the game, right? Maybe they'll come out with the sequel, but now it's like, oh, we didn't get the true ending.
Or you could say, or I could even see someone saying, "Hey, we got this new pack. You buy this pack, and there's a whole nother continent you can go visit now in Final Fantasy." That might be okay. But having you like, if you want the really good sword, pay us $5. Now, if you want the really good armor, pay us $2. If you want a really good spaceship, pay us $10. You know, that stuff, that nickel and diming crap.
It's crazy. And yeah, and it's sad how they have it down to they know that'll work for people. They know they're going to make money. It's like easy for them to do. My friend Avarice wants to know, how did you handle social pressure from church versus making games that they would consider demonic?
Well, mostly, so I guess my church is kind of based in that regard, and that there was guys that when I did Doom were like all up in arms about how terrible Doom was. I don't think they knew I belonged to their church, but mostly like my local congregation, they would ask me if they can get discounts on getting the game. So, you know, it was pretty easy going.
Well, like you said, I don't think, like, one, it's not really a message. It's about having fun. And second, if you did want to look into a message for, like, Call of Cthulhu or Doom, it's actually about fighting evil. Right? It's not embracing it, really.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I think sometimes people get too curmudgeon-y with these things. To me, being a Christian doesn't mean not having fun or not being able to watch a horror movie or something like that. Obviously, you could take it too far, and some people do.
Yeah, I can go watch Arnold Schwarzenegger in End of Days where he literally beats up the devil, and I just think it's hilarious and enjoy it. I don't have to like, this violates what the Bible says. You know, yeah, it does. So what? You know?
Yeah. So a couple more. These aren't real questions. These are more. But thank you, Mr. P, for $20. He says, growing up playing Quake and early Doom games made me the man I am today. Thank you for all your work, Sandy. I admire you even more knowing you're based and a fan of me. I seriously hope John Romero is based too.
So I will just say that John Romero is not as based as I am. He's not a raging leftist. He mostly is non-political. But like, for example, a while ago, there was a trend on X of people, this is before Musk took it over, people like randomly commented to me and saying, Sandy, will you bravely say that trans women are women? And I didn't say they weren't women. I just didn't say anything, right? But John Romero, he got that same feed. Everyone got it. Those games, and he said, "Oh yeah, trans women are women." He didn't care, right? He's more apolitical than I am. But you know, back in the day, like he is not a heavily political guy. He's one of the apolitical people. And if someone says, "Do this political thing, jump through this hoop," then he would do it because he didn't care.
My friend Spiro, thank you so much, $20, says, question for Sandy. Why are you so awesome and based?
I owe it all to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and the fact that I read a lot and that my wife is the most beautiful woman I've ever seen.
Isn't it? It's like, I say this all the time, like, that's amazing. I say it all the time that, like, I feel that, like, to the extent that I'm happy and anything's ever came out good for me that people like, I chalk it up to sort of my family, right? That I'm a happy person back home. Would you say that your wife supported you, like as you were all the different iterations that she
far more than I deserved? Even when I made blunders, she'd support me sometimes, and well, usually the best. So here's the great thing: if you're a gamer and you have kids, my wife's not a gamer, which is fine. She would come and make dinner for us, or I'd make dinner with her and the friends. She'd be there. She liked my friends; they liked her. But then she'd go do other things while we gamed. But when you have kids, you raise the kids, and now you have your own gaming group.
Right.
And now my kids are like in their 30s and 40s, and they have kids, and now they're starting to they go play games with me. So it's super fun.
I have a 4-year-old, and I'm interested now.
Well, his games are probably more like throwing the ball and catching it right now.
Yes, but even as far as like digital games, it's very rudimentary, right? It'll be like something on a tablet where it's like move the shape, but he saw his cousin playing Minecraft. And now he's like super interested. Now he doesn't have the dexterity to understand how the control works and all that stuff. But I can see that, I can see in the coming years that he's going to get in to sort of like young gaming. And it's actually a scary thing because like you said, now it's so easy to have access online. Whereas when I was growing up, it wasn't that. When you were playing a game, you're in by yourself. And there's some real bad people out there trying to take advantage of young people on a lot of these games.
Yes. There are. You have to be super cautious about that. I'm glad that people are aware of that now and kind of watching over it. Yeah, I try to limit it for the kids. But see, all that online stuff doesn't apply if they're playing board games.
That's right. And given that, so I'm going to get you. I'm going to get you out of here on this. You've been so generous with our time. I can't thank you enough. Okay, we got the link to your. We got the link to your website out here. If I'm new to sort of like these style board games or these style pen and paper games, what would you recommend of all the games right now on your site? What would be a great one to get in for people? Okay, so here's 2 things to know right now. If you buy anything with the 8-bit attack group, then you get a free Halloween expansion. Excellent. So that's our. You have to type in Happy H. Gotcha. To get it. Next. Cthulhu Wars is by far our biggest seller. Everyone loves Cthulhu Wars. That is okay. Our newest game, my newest game is Hyperspace, which I also showed you. So those are probably the things to look for. And then there's 3 level, like Cthulhu Wars is like $200. Hyperspace is less than $100. 8-bit Attack is like $40. So you kind of have a range there. Also, be aware that I am on X as Sandy of Cthulhu. I am on YouTube as Sandy of Cthulhu, and I have a Patreon as Sandy of Cthulhu, where you get an essay every week, and you get game stuff, and I actually every month you get an STL downloadable figure you can print out of some hideous monster usually. So if you're into 3D printing, then there's that. That's amazing. Well, Mr. Petersen, I can't thank you enough. I've thoroughly enjoyed this. Hopefully we'll be able to talk soon, but really incredible. Someone who I had no idea many of these games that I was playing grow up, that I would be able to talk to someone who had an instrumental hand in creating them. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you. And I wish you all the best. Thank you. Well, I'll make sure that we get all those links up there too. This will be cut out as just its own unique video, but we'll make sure that the rest of the stream here that we get all of your stuff in chat. And if you could send me a link to it so I can promote it on X, I would really appreciate that. Absolutely, and we'll edit it out so it's just this, but I'll send you on the email the link to this live stream too. That's just what I want. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Anything you ever need from me, just let me know. I can't thank you enough. Okay, so I've been pining for a really big cowboy style steak recently with baked potato and that kind of stuff. So where do you live? I live in Clarion County, Pennsylvania. Wife, we're going to need a big steak. She'll get on it. She'll get it. We'll have to be at a convention at the same time or something. I'm in Utah. So, and boy, I used to live in Texas where the steak culture is pretty sound, but Utah is not the same. Yeah, no good there. Well, I mean, you can occasionally find one because most of America knows how to grill a steak, but not like the Texas. Dude, there's a big battle on my channel where there's like this one guy that's like insisting like Mississippi barbecue or something's better in Texas, and it's like knockdown. You have to have that fight: Texas versus Mississippi versus Memphis versus Georgia versus. We all have to fight about the barbecue, but what we all agree on is that a good barbecue ends at the Mason-Dixon line, and that Kansas City barbecue is bad. Yeah, and I'm above that line. In Pennsylvania, what we have, though? We got like big pierogi culture. There's a lot of Polish influence here. You ever get any of the Maryland pit beef stuff up there? Once in a while. right? Like it's so weird. Like here, it's like instead of like that style barbecue, where I live, it's all about like venison and stuff, right? Because hunting culture is so big here. So like if you wanted interesting food around here, it's gonna be some guy like out back that just skinned a deer or a squirrel or something.
Well,
And he's cooking you that up.
Cheesesteak, so there's that.
Yeah, but Philly, Pennsylvania's huge. I don't even associate with Philly.
Pennsylvania is huge.
It's I'm more
Now
towards.
we're going to field. I'm going to start asking you questions about the Pennsylvania election things and stuff.
About that, I could talk about that all day. Actually, it's funny. I got a
probably
call.
have talked about it all day somewhere, and I could look it up.
I got a call later with the Pennsylvania Republican later this evening about sort of what to do with the messaging, because we have this big initiative on our ballot where it's basically about retaining these 3 judges.
Yeah, you got those three crazy guys, right? That you want to get. I don't know if they're all guys, but
one woman, I think. But yes. Yeah, they're terrible. So I'm going to have a big push here going up, trying to encourage everyone. Everyone should vote, by the way, in whatever state you're in. But in Pennsylvania particularly, we're going to have a Democrat.
It's a little more critical right now in Pennsylvania.
Yeah. And like
and Virginia.
It's crazy. And if you're like, people don't take these off-year elections seriously. Here's the problem, right? Look at like what we see with lawlessness, with all these people rioting against ICE. Who do you think's going to eventually prosecute them? Well, you're going to have like attorney generals, like this guy that wants Trump supporters' kids dead in Virginia if he wins, or you're going to have judges that are eventually arbitrating this, like the ones we see in Pennsylvania here that are going to be there for the next 10 years.
Judges from Sweden, those would be good, right?
It's surreal, man. But you can't motivate. It doesn't matter. You can talk until you're blue in the face, and you just can't motivate people. You get Trump on the ballot in a presidential election year. Oh boy, they're out there voting. But something like this, it's like, I don't know. I got work. I don't feel like heading to the polling place. So my job's to try to motivate them here in Pennsylvania.
Good luck. And I'm going to sign off and go do game-related stuff.
That's amazing. Thank you again so much for your time. Anytime
we can do this again in a year or so.
Love to. Take it easy. We'll see you. Oh my goodness, that was one of my favorite interviews that I've ever done.